I'm Ryan Salazar with NAB Show Live, and I'm really excited because today we have the one, the only, Graham Sharp, CEO of Broadcast Picks. How you doing, Graham?
Good, thanks, Ryan. I'm not sure I'm the one and only, but yeah, thank you.
Well, I must say, Broadcast Picks is certainly a leader in the industry of switchers, and you guys have really revolutionized a lot of things that you're doing in the industry. So let's talk about Broadcast Picks. Number one, how you got started. Obviously, you guys create switchers and whatnot, and maybe there's something else you can share with us.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I started way before my time, around 2002. Some very clever people started thinking about how they could create an integrated production solution that had all the bits in it in one package that you needed to create a live video. And they sort of pursued that goal for a number of years. I only joined in August of last year. I was chatting to the board, and they were looking for some strategic help to try and grow the business. The business has kind of plateaued over the years. And it was really interesting for me because obviously, history with people like Avid and Grass Valley and other big companies, I was actually very pleasantly surprised by the amount of technology Broadcast Picks had got under the hood. And, as is typical when a new CEO comes in, we did a lot of meetings to try and figure out, what was really there and what really was the core competency of the business. And actually, that it's very interesting running those kind of strategy sessions because you often uncover something that is not necessarily what the company was marketing. So everybody sort of looks at Broadcast Picks as a switcher company, which of course it is, but the real value in the company is the work that's been done on the user interfaces and the automation of live production. And what I figured pretty quickly is that's incredibly important today because if you were to look at the market, I always think all things start with the market. If you think about the market, the live production pyramid, as I call it, at the very top, that market hasn't really grown that much. I seem to recall doing work years ago, and there was about 120 large HD trucks that do the Super Bowl and the Major League Baseball, etc., in the US, and that's similar today. Those events, there's not more of them. If you look down the pyramid, where the growth in the market has occurred is at the very bottom, where tier 3 sporting events, everybody's trying to use video, everybody's trying to stream video. So it doesn't matter whether it's a town hall meeting or whether it's your radio station wants to add visual radios, so a streaming video feed. We've really blown the doors off the bottom of the production pyramid. Now, what's easy to understand when you look at it is, we created this thing called broadcast trained or broadcast operator trained. So if you look at a switcher today, we're still using a 50-year-old user interface. The whole ME bus concept was developed in the late 60s because of analog processing. And unless you've been trained on an ME surface, you'll find it very confusing and very difficult. So as we blew the doors off the bottom of that pyramid, where we're saying, okay, guys, this is where the growth is, unfortunately, we haven't made it any easier for operators to use the product and the technology down there. And so when I looked at Broadcast Picks and saw all the technology and the work that had been done on configurable user interfaces and sort of that human machine interface, I realized the real value was being able to bring products to the bottom end of that pyramid where you don't necessarily have to be a broadcast trained operator. So that's the real value. That's the thrust of what we're going to be showing at NAB, products around ease of use. And that really is a sort of it's a refinement of the long-standing Broadcast Pick strategy.
Well, I must say, you put that very well, and you're right. I'm not a technical director type. I ran switchers years ago when I was a kid running a cable TV show. I was like 15 years old. I've been in the business way too long. And it was a whole different world back then, obviously. We were running off of Betacam SPs and SVHS decks, believe it or not, Super VHS. But when I learned switchers again over the last, I'm more of a post-production guy. I come from broadcast as well, but never really operated switchers at a heavy length. So I started to learn switchers over the last 4 or 5 years. And you're right, in the beginning, I was completely baffled by MEs and whatnot. And it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, because it's coming from the opposite. These are people that are not from the world of broadcast. And this facility is a great example. Yeah, exactly. And this facility is a great example. We're built to stream. We actually have satellite uplink out of here, but it makes a lot of sense. So thank you for putting it that way, because it makes people think from a different perspective, which is really new school in that regard. So thank you. So let's talk about some of the solutions you'll be showing off at the 2020 NAB show in terms of switchers and anything else that you'd like to share.
So a lot of the ideas were formulated, I have to say, around IBC. When I looked at what Broadcast Picks had sold in Europe, a lot of the switches had been sold into visual radio applications. And when I sort of analyzed the market, I looked at the North American market and realized that visual radio, although talked about, is still quite in its infancy in North America. And part of that problem is, again, ease of use. People are trying to sell an ME switcher type solution to a small radio station, and that in turn drives cost. It puts the solution out of the reach of many of the small radio stations. So we came upon the notion of taking our software, our technology, and packaging it as what we're calling appliances that are dedicated and focused to very specific applications. So the first product that we already talked about, we sort of soft launched, was a thing called Radio Picks. And that's a dedicated production solution for visual radio. It's priced hopefully at the right price point for the visual radio market. Its user interfaces are exactly what a radio station would want. They're very simple to use. We've built in layers of automation such that, for example, we can detect the microphone levels and we can get it to trigger what we call media aware macros. So for example, we have a thing called a boredom macro, which if a person is talking on a microphone for longer than a minute, it will, pull the camera back, do a wide shot, throw up the title, bring the camera back in to keep the output visually interesting. We have the sort of all-out war shot, which is when all three people start talking at once. We detect the microphone audio and we pull back to a wide shot so you can see the whole group. So it's a mixture of our existing software, but packaged in such a way that it comes with the correct content for visual radio, so clips, the correct graphics elements, and this layer of automation, what I'm calling sort of behavioral automation, that sort of enables a radio station to produce visually interesting content without extra people. They can then market that. They can obviously, stream it, sell ads on it, and it's another revenue source for that station. So that's the first thing, and we'll be consolidating on that at NAB. There's a couple of other things. One is meetings picks, which is the same idea for town halls. And then we're also going to be showing a sort of a technology engineering demo where we've done a MIDI control interface. And the idea being that we're going to open up our control interface to any MIDI controller. And the whole idea behind this is obviously to show we're open, which of course we are, but also to attract that next generation of user. If you can use a MIDI controller, we can map that MIDI controller to control switcher functionality. And it's all about us growing the operator base, offering control surfaces and sets of tools that anyone can use. You don't have to be broadcast trained. And following NAB, you'll see a whole series of other application-specific products coming out.
Well, that's pretty exciting. So I'll give you an example. Our facility, we have a 6,000 square foot facility. When I first built it 6 years ago, when Broadcast Beat started 6.5 years ago, I thought, all right, so you can't afford to have a full-time person in the facility. I need to find ways to automate the things that we're doing. Even now, we have one person running our master control room. I like to call it our streaming center now, actually. But the idea of using MIDI or technology in a similar way to be able to trigger things is right up our alley, and of course, a lot of other people would like to do the same thing because it's helping you make things more efficient. And in fact, I was just thinking a moment ago how if I could control my teleprompter with my feet to go back left
Yep.
and hit a right pedal and maybe go down. So just an interesting thing. So thank you. So tell me about any special offers or contest giveaways that Broadcast Picks is doing at the 2020 NAB show, and that would be very exciting.
Okay, so we ran end of last year, I guess around IBC, a "What's Behind Your Button" campaign, because a big part of this level of automation is creating these media-aware macros. So I can go in and I'm watching, our production now. We go to a 2-box, then we come back to a 1-box. Well, in our software, we can make all of those media-aware macros. So we ran a competition amongst our users to say, hey, send us, the most time-saving, complex, whatever macro you've built, and we'll judge it and we'll give away an iPad. That was pretty successful, but I got the feeling we sort of ran it from IBC. The guy that won it was France Television from Europe. It sort of didn't really make its way across the pond that well. So we're going to run the same series for NAB, where we're asking all our users, anyone that uses a Broadcast Picks product, to send us their macros that they've created, and we'll judge them. And whoever is deemed to have the most useful macro, we'll give an iPad to, and we'll judge that at NAB. So it's the "What's Behind Your Macro, What's Behind Your Button" competition, meaning I can take one button push, and behind that I can have a macro that does any amount of automation. You show us the best, you get to win an iPad.
Well, how cool is that? That's awesome. So Deanna in our control room, she's going crazy. She's a button pushing monkey with all the different settings with macros and whatnot. She has a blast in there doing that, and I'm sure that's going to be very successful at the 2020 NAB show with your users. That's very cool. All right, so one thing I always ask everybody that we chat with is when you go to Las Vegas for the NAB show or any event that you're in town for, is there a certain place you like to go, whether it's Hoover Dam or maybe a cool restaurant? I like to go to Tao, which is near the Tao nightclub. They have fantastic food, but I like to share that for our viewers and readers so they can try something new.
So I have a favorite restaurant. I go to it every year. And this is a dual-edged sword, right? Because if I tell you and all your viewers, they're all going to show up and I'm not going to be able to get in. But my favorite restaurant is the French restaurant. I think it's called Chez Mongabi. It's in Paris, and it has an outdoor terrace that is directly opposite the fountains of whatever the other hotel's called across the road. And, it's reasonably priced. It has great French kind of caf food, and you get to sit outside and watch the fountains and the music performance basically for free in a great setting. So Paris, I think it's called Mon Ami Gabi or something like that, but it's the French restaurant on the strip overlooking the fountains across the street.
Very nice. Sounds great. All right, Graham Sharp, CEO of Broadcast Picks. You're going to be in South Lower 9324. That's SL 9324 at the 2020 NAB show in the Las Vegas Convention Center. We're going to see you in just a few months.